I once saved $80,000 by living extremely frugally. I cut my own hair, I never traveled, I rarely ate out, but within several years almost all of it disappeared. Every time I earned it back, I lost. COVID, cancer, car accident, market crash, geopolitical event. It felt like the universe was determined to take my money away, and that's when I realized, oh my God, I am repeating my father's life. In my earlier video, I delved deep into my father's money program and how it rendered his financial reality for 40 years of his life. I'll link it in the description. On the surface, my father looked like the last person who would ever end up poor. He inherited millions from his wealthy parents at young age. He was academically talented. He had a high-paying job as an engineer. He was disciplined, extremely frugal. He was willing to sacrifice almost everything in order to protect his money. And he did, at all cost. His wife and kids resented him for that. He didn't care. Money was far more important. But underneath all of that, there was a belief that money was extremely hard to obtain, and fear that it could disappear at any moment. And that belief shaped every financial decision he made for the next 50 years and rendered that exact financial reality for him. No matter how much money my grandfather gave him, no matter how many times he was bailed out of financial trouble, his money always disappeared again in a flash, just like he feared. It wasn't intelligence, it wasn't fate, it was a program. The belief that money is scarce and fear of losing money was so strongly impressed in the subconscious that it was rendering that exact reality over and over. And it took me years to realize that I was running on the same program. The program I unconsciously downloaded from my father, that was ruining my finances decades later. I resented my father for a long time. He inherited millions and yet never allowed us to spend comfortably out of fear of losing it, and ended up losing all of it anyway. But years later in my 30s, I found myself living in a strangely similar way. After I quit my first job in broadcasting, broke off an engagement, and took a regular office job in Korea, I was determined to build wealth for the first time in my life. I moved back into my parents' house to save rent. I also started living extremely frugally. I cut my own hair. I made coffee at home every morning. I stopped traveling. I rarely ate out. I told myself it was a smart financial decision that would allow me to retire early. Ironically, I had spent years criticizing my father for living like that. Yet there I was, living exactly the same way. My first financial goal was simple. I wanted to save $100,000. I believed that once I reached that number, the anxiety I felt about money would finally disappear. Because I wasn't paying rent, my savings grew faster than I expected. After about 4 years of living an extremely restrictive lifestyle, I had managed to save about $80,000 in my brokerage account. And COVID happened. The stock market collapsed. It was the first time in my life that I had experienced a real market crash. When I saw most of my investments suddenly cut in half, I panicked. Instead of waiting, I sold everything. Just like that, $80,000 became $40,000. I was devastated, especially because within a few months those prices went back up. It felt like I was the only one who had lost so much money, but I told myself I could rebuild it, so I tightened my life even more and slowly saved again. I persisted in a toxic work environment and pushed myself to endure it so that I could keep making money. Eventually, I managed to build it back up to around $60,000. And then something happened that completely changed everything. Both of my parents were diagnosed with stage 4 cancer within a few years of each other. Lymphoma and bile duct cancer, chemotherapy, radiation, targeted therapy, immunotherapy, surgery. Frequent ER visits from the side effects of all those treatments. We went through everything. At one point, my parents had to sell their home, and I used my savings to help them. The money I had spent years accumulating disappeared quickly, but that still wasn't the end of it. Strange things kept happening. There were also moments when I sold certain stocks to help pay for my parents' medication. Out of all the stocks I owned, the ones I sold were the ones that skyrocketed afterward. One of them went up 8 times within 10 months. The ones I decided to keep went down. Eventually, I sold them at around 70% of the price I bought them for to help with the medical bills. Stories like this kept happening in my life. One time I was on a business trip in the United States. I decided to extend my stay for 2 days just to rest before flying back. During those 2 days, I accidentally dropped my laptop on my foot in my hotel room. I broke a bone and ended up in the ER. I had to undergo a simple orthopedic surgery to insert a pin. I didn't have US insurance, and the travel insurance provided by my employer had expired just 2 days earlier, on the last day of my business trip. The bill ended up being more than $20,000. Crushed and panicked by my decreasing savings, I started a side hustle, importing American goods to sell on a Korean website. But right after I launched my website, which had cost several $1,000s to build, North Korea suddenly launched missiles and geopolitical tensions pushed the exchange rate up by almost 30 to 40%. No one wanted to buy my goods because their prices had increased so dramatically in such a short time. I had to close the shop down at a massive loss. I just kept losing and losing. After years of experiences like this, I started to feel something strange. No matter how carefully I tried to save money, something unexpected would always happen. No matter how much I hustled, I kept running into situations where all my efforts suddenly became meaningless, and the money I had worked so hard to save disappeared. A crash, a medical bill, a currency shock, a stock market loss. It felt as if the entire world, even North Korea and a global virus, was working against me. Eventually, I began asking myself a very uncomfortable question. Was this really just bad luck, or was something deeper shaping the way my financial life kept unfolding? Then I realized something unsettling. I was repeating my father's life. But unlike him, I didn't have a wealthy father who could bail me out. I needed to solve this problem quickly. And it became clear to me that the solution was not finding another side hustle or tightening my spending even further. The answer had to be somewhere deeper. I had to go back to the source. To find the code that had created this entire pattern in my life. And delete it. In the next video, I'll show you exactly how I deleted that subconscious program and installed a new one, and how that process completely turned my financial life around.